And we're live. Hi, my name is Tyriece Lemon.
Elijah Jones.
This is episode 40 of MMA Renegade, recapping UFC 258. Dude, we have a lot to get into.
We do.
Particularly the main events and just the card itself, and just whether we're going to disagree on whether it was worth the $80 or not. I'm pretty sure we're going to debate about that. How are you doing, Elijah, though?
It's a Sunday. It's another day here in New York City. It's obviously Brickers Month, and we're just trying to navigate the day. I'm doing fine. Woke up this morning okay, so I can't complain. I actually got the first injection for the COVID vaccine.
Nice.
So after my arm being a little sore, nothing else has been an issue. So hopefully, in 3 weeks when I get the next one, we can keep that same trend. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Again, brick outside, it's cold. It's been snowing and icy for the last week or so. I'm a little bit tired of it. Everybody's in the house. You're going to hear people talking in the background. Hopefully, it's not too much distraction. I know you're in. You got some air frying going on. I'm a little hungry, so it's kind of getting me tight a little bit. But I can't complain.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And we already got Flathead Politics. How you doing, Flathead Politics?
Good to see and hear from you again, brother. Hope you're doing well.
And also, since you're here, Flathead Politics, we have a Discord. We have a Discord where a lot of our MMA discussion will happen. We're working on something for March where, if you watched the video last week, we had a video that got taken down because of copyright.
Yeah.
And we can't do the full analysis like we want to do. So we're hoping to do that on Discord where you'll get a full breakdown of fights and more in-depth talk. And plus, you'll get to see us, watch fights with us live and talk about it live. So
Yep.
It's in the description. You can join there. We're hoping to grow that community and hopefully, again, March, we have a big one coming up. We'll have a big
back to back shows in March. So stay tuned, people. Stay tuned.
So, and also share, subscribe, like, the deal. That helps us a lot. And, we live to give this content to you, and we hope that you appreciate it.
Agreed, brother.
All right, Elijah, you kick us off.
All right. Last night, coming to you from UFC's Apex Center in Las Vegas, Nevada, UFC 258 was a moment for the books. Last night, we had the famous Gilbert Durinho Burns, who jumped up from lightweight and has been on a straight tear from the welterweight division, with victories over Damian Maia and Tyron Woodley recently, taking on the undisputed Kamaru Nigerian Nightmare Usman, who is now officially past GSP on consecutive wins in the welterweight division after finishing Gilbert Burns last night. Tyriece, start us off with the fight.
Yeah, so one of the things we talked about, and the video that got taken down, we did also the prediction show with it. We talked about how we didn't know how this fight was going to go. I had Gilbert Burns just off the strength of arguing against you, but I really didn't know.
No.
Gilbert Burns, to me, had all the tools to get it done. He had the striking, he had the grappling to defend on the ground if they could either go there. So we were unsure of how we're going to go. By the way, you're going to see a little bit of a cameo by this dude right here. Put your clothes on, you little nigga body. But we were confused on like how this fight was gonna go. I thought Kamaru was gonna be the stronger guy. I thought he could wear on Gilbert Burns, but I thought the hand speed of Gilbert Burns could be a problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think when we kind of give a very short, brief analysis about the fight and our predictions, we knew that the speed advantage goes to Gilbert, right? As a guy who jumps up from 155 to 170. There's a difference in fighting and stylistically, right, between those guys. The guys at smaller weight tend to be a little bit more faster, and the guys at welterweight tend to hit a little harder, right? We know that off the back. But Gilbert Burns at 155 always had crazy knockout power. So we knew that would be there, especially if he was healthy at 170. The one thing we didn't know was, because these guys train so often, was who would make the other person submit first, right? We know that Gilbert Burns at 170, he's pushed the pace, he enters the grappling, he likes to throw these leg kicks, and he's famous for these hooks, right? The hooks and the uppercuts are kind of where Gilbert Burns gets his main kind of attraction, right? That's where he gets the highlight knockout over Damian Maia, the knockdown, and then that's exactly how he came over the top with the right to end up dropping Woodley in the first round. So we really couldn't call it as of yet because we know that this fight was a lot closer, and this is so much more dangerous than any other fight that he's been to because there's a guy who could literally knock him out. There's no other guy, I think, in my opinion, Kamaru or Usman faced that actually has the one punch knockout power to put him out with, in any combination, and that's the most dangerous part about Gilbert. But last night showed that Kamaru, man, Kamaru is it. He's a problem.
Yeah, I think one of the things we brought up also was the hand speed. And I thought the hand speed of Gilbert Burns were going to be a big issue, especially where Kamaru Usman, he has the power, but I thought the speed of Gilbert Burns being able to get on the inside and land, that was going to be the big difference. Like the Tyron Woodley fight we've seen, and in the first round, we've seen it with the hand speed, and he was able to tag Kamaru Usman. Yeah. And it was interesting to see. In the press conference, Gilbert Burns says that he went Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah,
and meaning that he decided to blow his gas tank and get excited and go for the kill. What do you think about that?
I think, well, just to start off in the first round, that first opening minutes was great, especially because for Gilbert, right? Gilbert did what he decided to do. Perfect game plan, pressure Kamaru. Kamaru is someone who hasn't been very pressured in his fights where he's consistently backing up. He's definitely had to meet people in the octagon. He's taken some hits, but he's never had to truly fight going backwards. So that was a great edge on Burns' part. The second thing he did perfectly was he would wait till Kamaru would step to the left in order to land his straight because Kamaru is such a powerful guy. Kamaru is always looking for the straight down the middle, just to start the fight, just to start combinations. And so Gilbert, perfectly timed right hand that drops Kamaru, and I thought that was brilliant. But I'm sorry, go back to what were you saying? What did I think about Gilbert Burns? Gilbert Burns, he had him. When he hurt him, he ended up throwing this head kick that Kamaru blocked perfectly.
Yes,
right?
yes,
he blocked perfectly. And that's the thing, that's the determinant between being a champion and being a challenger, is that in those crucial moments, you have to make those decisions that enable you to get the better position, to get the better strike off, to maybe even put you in a more distance controlled area so that way you can breathe. And after that, I was like, whoa, like he's got to slow down. He could have, and if it was anybody else, he would have finished that fight. That's the other thing, right? If it was anybody else with that right hand he landed and then going up top with that head kick, he could have potentially finished anybody else. But with Kamaru being so tough and then having all that time on the ground and those right leg kicks to the thigh, the back left thigh of Gilbert Burns, I just think that played a part also. And then he blew it. Not that he blew it in the first round, but he got excited. He got excited because he did something we never seen happen to Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman, he got dropped, but technically it wasn't a drop on the actual statistics, right? Because to be knocked down, you have to be knocked off your feet, but he ended up catching himself and falling. So we saw that one thing that's never happened to Kamaru in 11 or 12 of his fights.
I mean, he almost got hurt. Well, he did get hurt in the Kobe Covington fight, but it wasn't nothing like
he's never been dropped. Yeah. He's never been dropped, and that's the biggest thing. That was the biggest takeaway. But after that, it seemed like Kamaru did what he did and put the pace on him, and he just couldn't keep up with that pace.
Yeah, we're going to talk about what Kamaru Usman did, the adjustments he did. But I thought another thing that needs to be pointed out was Gilbert Burns. That long exchange where Gilbert Burns is on the floor on the ground.
Took way too long.
Yeah, and I thought that in retrospect, he'll probably look at that on the tape and like, you know what, if I could have got up sooner and continued to put the pressure on Usman, maybe he wouldn't have recovered as fast as he did and got back into the fight because he had him hurt. And then Gilbert Burns gets on the floor, and he's daring him to come to the ground with him. Yeah,
too comfortable. With a guy like Kamaru, you don't. Again, your best bet is the hands. You saw that with Colby Covington. Although it was a close fight, Colby was able to hurt him. And if a guy like you who has the power and the speed advantage, and you're landing combinations off the back, that's something you'd wanna stick to early, right? The second biggest determinant after being on the ground so long was that Kamaru has such a longer reach than most people realize that he was able to land body shots.
Right.
And these body shots, after I think maybe the second or third one of them was crazy loud, and then Gilbert Burns was immediately trying to get up after that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that was the other thing, right? Like you got too comfortable with the ground because you have the jiu-jitsu accolades and that's fine. But with a guy like Kamaru's not looking to go on the ground, but he's looking to hurt you on the ground, right? There's some people who will grapple with you on the ground just to do that, but he's looking to hurt you first, then follow up. So he remained too long, and that hurt him. That was a very big difference in determinant for the first round, and that's what ultimately led me giving the first round to Kamaru.
That's fair. I thought I thought Gilbert Burns may have stole the first round, but yeah, that's a good argument too that Kamaru Usman may have won the first round. I thought even the finishing sequence. We go fast forward a little bit. You see that the end of the fight ended with Kamaru Usman not really trying to go to the ground, but striking from the top. Usman, Gilbert Burns on the ground. Let me talk about this. The adjustment of Kamaru Usman to switch southpaw.
Now, this is something he's been doing, and I want to say since the Colby fight, right? Maybe even sooner with the Rafael dos Anjos. I have to go back and double check the tape. But this is something that he's always implemented because Kamaru isn't he's technical in the aspect of how to pick his shots and where to land due to the Dutch kickboxing style that he has from Henry Hoof. But he's never been a guy who's throwing crazy 2-3 combinations, 4-5 combinations. That's just not Kamaru's style. And so when you look at the switch between southpaw and orthodox, it's essentially to do two things: to land a straight and to land the jab. And he's popping the jab out. And there's been moments through the fight, I think it was the second and third round, where he has Gilbert against the fence almost, like he's just chasing him down, walking him down. And when he goes left, he goes southpaw. When he goes right, he goes southpaw. When he goes left, he goes orthodox. So that was a very brilliant game plan to really kind of initiate with Gilbert, right? Because I'm sure they've seen that in training, but I think that's something that he worked on very much with Trevor Whitman and just trying to pop the jab, pop the straight. And I saw that to transition between the two stances, that he would throw the straight and then leave that lead leg out to then now be into orthodox and then go back to southpaw. He would go to southpaw with the right straight and then stay in southpaw and then just switch back to orthodox and then go back into southpaw with the straight right. And I thought it was brilliant. I thought that was a very, very good strategy on his part.
Yeah, we're seeing an evolution in his game. Like he continues to get better and better and better and improve
significantly.
We talk about the Colby Covington fight where we start to see a really bloom there, and then the Masvidal fight, he didn't really show it that much. But even this fight, especially, he showed more than the Colby Covington fight, which was the distance, how far as striking and IQ have gotten. I thought his ability to run the jab and use his length, because every time Gilbert Burns would try to reassess and readjust, he would slow that timing down.
Yeah.
He would pop the jab, and every time Gilbert Burns wanted to get back into the fight and really try to do it, he couldn't do it. And that's why you see Gilbert Burns try to grapple, not really to try to get the takedown.
Not committing. Yeah,
no, not committing, but not trying to get a takedown, but trying to look for something there because he couldn't exchange.
I think he shot 2 takedowns, and they were both stuffed. Maybe 3. I already double checked, but I'm pretty sure he tried 2 takedowns, and Kamaru just wasn't fazed by them at all. But one thing I did think was interesting is that Kamaru, he's not a guy who keeps his hands up like this. He left his left hand down. And again, like I want to say this, shout out to Israel Adesanya, is when you keep the jab lower than your body, it's coming up. So having to look down and trying to assess where it's coming from is a lot harder than when your hands are in your face. So shooting that jab up like this, pop, and then keeping that hand slightly low enough so that way you can pop the jab out or cover your face. I thought that adjustment, again, was very, very smart on Kamaru's part. I mean, again, this is a guy who's continued to evolve over his last 11 to 12 fights, and he shows no stagnancy. Like, this guy is truly the cream of the crop when it comes to the welterweight division.
I love the little fade back. The little fade back where Joe Burns tried to throw a jab. He fades back and goes forward with the right hand.
The pullback straight. The pullback straight is impressive. I mean, again, Kamaru is starting not only to blossom more as becoming more technical in the sense of when to pick, how to throw, how to disrupt rhythm, right? He's not really a rhythm fighter, right? Because he can throw these weird kicks. He throws these push kicks, the teep kicks, the body kicks. He throws them not in a super like orthodox fashion, but I mean, it showed a very technical and brilliant mind when it comes to fighting. And I think that's something that a lot of people I'm starting to put him on the map for, is that his MMA fight IQ is out there. It is up there with some of the best in that division, which have ever been welterweights, in my opinion.
So let me ask you this, right? So Gilbert Burns loses to Kamaru Usman. They give the stat that he has surpassed GSP in terms of welterweight wins. GSP still has the most consecutive wins than Kamaru Usman.
Yeah.
Are we in an agreement here that Gilbert Usman is still he still needs more to be able to be one of the best welterweights of all time?
Usman will go down as one of the best as of right now. He will go down as one of the best welterweights of all time because there's just
Correct.
welterweight is such a big division, right? Like the average male is probably between 5'9" and 5'9", right? And then like between 5'9" and 6 foot, and that's generally how big the people in the welterweight division are, right? Like there's so many people who have come: Sean Sharp, BJ Penn, George St. Pierre, right? Nate Marquardt, Tyron Wood. Like he's going to be up there as one of the best welterweight champions, but like as the GOAT, he's still definitely he's got work to do. He's for sure got work to do.
Yeah, I thought about the scenario of we're gonna transition to who's next, but I thought about the scenario of if Adesanya goes to light heavyweight, would that clear the way for Usman to go to middleweight and then
not as of yet, because and the reason as to why, which we'll get into, is because of the contenders not only in his division, but that jump to middleweight means so much more than you think, right? Like that's that middleweight is a little bit bigger. It's a little bit grittier. I don't think it's not that he can't do it. I just think there's some things that he needs to do at welterweight to really solidify being the best welterweight of all time.
Perfect that you said that because I agree with you. I throw the argument out because that's something that popped in my mind is if Adesanya goes to light heavyweight, Adesanya and Usman, I think Usman said publicly he does not want to face Adesanya.
No.
So I thought that may clear a way for him to have new challenges. Because I think at this point, he's still looking at who can fight Usman next, and this is the perfect segue to him calling out Jorge Masvidal, and that he wants Jorge Masvidal or anybody that talks about him. He felt like he's disrespected, and he felt like Masvidal's talking too much, and that he wants to finish him this time. I asked you, do you want to see Jorge Masvidal versus Usman again?
Yeah, and the reason as to why I do, because I think the outcome, I think someone gets finished in that fight. I think there's a possible finish in that second fight, right? We know how dangerous let's just start off this. We know how dangerous Masvidal is. So he's always been a gifted fighter, but could never really, there was always something that held him back, right? In the Benson Henderson fight, he had lost, but most people thought he won. In the Al Quinta fight, he lost, most people thought he won, right? When he finally beats Darren Till and goes on this crazy spree of I'm that good, it kind of brought something into, him into the mainstream. But Kamaru, with the 6-day fight notice, Kamaru was right. There's a possibility of it was on 6 days notice, I can beat him on a full camp. But Kamaru knows for sure that he can beat him. So I want to see if that fight ends differently. I want to give Jorge Masvidal that full fight camp that he's asking for, because I do think with the full fight camp, Masvidal is one of the most dangerous fighters of all time, right? He can be. But a full fight camp Kamaru, you've seen what he's done. Kamaru's at the point where now he's finishing people. He's no longer just dominating. He's starting to get into a groove of finishing with finishes in his last two against top 5 opponents in the welterweight division. I'm just so much more intrigued by what the possibility of him doing to Jorge Masvidal is there. So I definitely want that fight. What about you?
I don't. I don't need to see Usman versus Masvidal. And Flat Politics, you're in the group chat. You could definitely say,
please.
what you want to see, because
I believe
I want to hear your input.
Flathead's a Jorge Masvidal fan, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Is he? I think he may have gotten off the train.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
But again, you'll be the tiebreaker here in terms of who wants to see who. But for me, I don't want to see Jorge Masvidal because I think 6 days notice was the best we were going to see of that fight. I think Kamaru Usman beats him the second time around. And there's no, and that's it. Oh, he's an Usman fan. So there you go.
Never mind.
He's an Usman fan. There you go.
Hey.
But if it goes the second time around, I don't think Masvidal. I think that Masvidal does worse. Honestly, that's number one. And number two, I like this here too. Masvidal's trying to get another paycheck. Agreed. That's why you see. That's why you see the. No, I do blame him, because if you watch the last fight, which we talk about, you could go back in the archive and watch. We talked about how Masvidal did not show up for that fight.
Without a doubt.
Even if it was on 6 days notice, still that fight was in the works for a while. So it wasn't really a 6-day fight. It was something that had been talked about and been trying to get scheduled for a while.
I'm just telling you what the people are saying. Again, we talked about this in a post-fight show. I just didn't think Masvidal had enough to beat he doesn't have enough to beat Usman. That's just it.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. I truly think Masvidal should fight Leon Edwards.
I agree, but
I think that's the fight to make, and I would like to see Michael Chiesa fight Colby Covington. I would like to see both of those two fighters, earn the next shot.
I agree with that. And the issue with being that Kamaru made a really good point last night that the top 5 guys don't want to fight each other. They just all want to fight for the belt, and it's like you can't unless you're number 2 or number 1. That's not going to happen. And if you're coming off losses such as the Masvidal loss to Kamaru, Colby lost to Kamaru. I mean, Colby's the only one out of the 2 who actually got back in the ring at Fort Tyrion Woodley, right? But Masvidal has had chances to fight other people, and he's choosing not to.
Yes, which we've heard from various reports. I think Ariel Wani talked about they wanted to do Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal as the tough revival under the ESPN banner. Which
would be really good if you think about it. It'd be a very good tough season. I don't know. I'd be interested in that.
I haven't been interested in tough for a long time, so it would take a miracle for me to be interested in tough. But I do think with Masvidal trying to see if he can get a fight with Usman
without having to actually fight anyone is interesting.
Right, Leon Edwards versus Street Judas is the fight to make. I like that. I like that fight. Or you could do Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards needs to fight somebody. I think him away from the octagon kind of removes him out of the talk of fighting for a title.
Agreed. This is what they said that Dana said last night at the post-fight presser that Colby versus Leon is the fight to make, apparently. And I was like, that's a good fight. But realistically, let's get the division going. Let's get some people up. Chiesa versus Colby is a great fight. Great test for Chiesa. Also solidifies Colby if he's able to finish him. And then 2, Leon versus Masvidal is the fight. Like that was supposed to happen immediately once they got into a little scuffle. That was the fight that was supposed to take place. But Masvidal, he's got stopped at his name at that time, and he was able to say no and argue for I don't want that. He's not deserving of my time. Which I guess they had to have seen. I don't know.
So we're talking about Colby Covington and Michael Chiesa possibly fighting each other. That makes the most sense between both of us.
Yeah.
Leon Edwards versus Jorge Masvidal, that makes sense because of the history. Yeah. And the fighter that I think should fight Kamaru Usman next is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I think that's the fight to make. I think
the only person he hasn't fought.
The only person he hasn't fought, and the person I think will be a tough matchup. Why? Because with Usman, I don't think Usman can use what we've seen from this fight. What we've seen from this fight was Usman uses his length and his reach, his IQ to keep Gilbert Burns on the outside and be able to use his jab. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Can he do that against a Wonder Boy?
That's a good question.
You can't Usman can't play those games with Wonder Boy because Wonder Boy's striking is made for this. It's made for point fighting.
Tailor-made.
So and let's say if Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's deep grappling defense has improved, and it gave Tom Woolley a hard time. I think that fight. I think in terms of just legacy, I think Kamaru Usman versus Stephen Thompson does way more for his legacy than Jorge Masvidal or Colby Covington, because if he's able to finish Stephen Wonderboy Thompson,
a guy who virtually could beat everyone in the top 5, has beaten already Jorge Masvidal, hasn't fought Leon Edwards, but is stylistically not the greatest matchup for Leon Edwards. And then you also have Colby Covington, who, although he presses forward, that's not going to do much. That push forward is really kind of a matador fight, right? That's just bull. That's the matador to the bull. I'm leading you where I'm making you dance the way I want you to. I agree.
And it's fresh.
The issue with the fight is that although realistically that should happen, that's not going to happen because one, apparently Stephen Thompson's one of his hands are still recovering from the fight with Jeff Neal, and 2, the argument is that people are going to say, well, he's not deserving of it, even though he's a top contender in welterweight, and no one's able to beat him. Mm-hmm. Everyone's trying to skip over him to guys like Covington and Masvidal because those guys are slightly more beatable than Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, right? So I agree. Give Wonderboy the title shot, and in the interim, get the division moving.
By the way, Stephen Thompson said he thinks April he should be fully cleared.
Yeah.
So if it's April's enough time for Stephen Thompson to be fully healed, and you could have that fight happen in the summer. So like remove the injury aspect out of it, right? Stephen Thompson, I think he is the fresher matchup, and I think he needs it. I think Stephen Thompson has a win over Jorge Masvidal too.
He beat him, like was kicking him in kicking him in the chest, foot to the chest, like
and nobody wants Stephen Thompson. Leon Edwards has been given Stephen Thompson. That fight has been able to put together. I think Stephen Thompson even tried to get Colby Covington at one point.
Nothing came.
Masvidal rematch. He wanted to fight Masvidal again.
And Masvidal said no. Nah,
you know what? You know what I'm saying? Like
give him the belt.
Stephen Thompson versus Usman is a fresh matchup. You can have Kamaru Usman. I mean, you can have Jorge Masvidal and Leon Edwards fight each other out, and that'll make a clear contender. You can have Colby Covington and Michael Chiesa fight each other out, and that could be a contender. But Stephen Thompson right now deserves. I want to emphasize that deserves to fight for the title next.
Without a doubt. I don't disagree with that. I've always been an advocate, even though I wanted Tyron Woodley to win. I've always been an advocate for some Wonder Boy because he beat everybody who was a champion, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's beaten Johnny Hendricks. I mean, it would be, and he never fought Robbie Lawler, but that would have been a great fight for him to have. Like bottom line. I
think he would have smoked Robbie Lawler.
I think he would have beat the brakes off of Robbie. Robbie would have had a few good moments. But
Robbie Lawler now he would.
Oh, Robbie Lawler now, no, that's not fair. But Robbie Lawler at the height of Robbie Lawler is an issue.
Yeah.
But anywho, long story short, I agree with that. I think if we want to open up the division and get things going, because I think with the top 5 guys really only wanting to fight one fight for the belt or not really fight each other, it kind of creates a stagnancy. And I don't want them to be like, well, Kamaru, you can go up to middleweight and challenge since Israel's gone. You know, you can fight for that's not. It's welterweight is a solid division. You have death's row when it comes to contenders. Let's start clearing the division out now.
By the way, I said give Wonder Boy a chance. I corrected myself immediately. Give Wonder Man. We're not calling Wonder Boy is I think like 36, 37. We're not calling him Wonder Boy anymore. He's Wonder Man. He's a full-grown man at this point.
Older
man. Older than Kamaru.
For sure. But give him the belt, dude. Give him the belt. Let him fight for it. It's nothing wrong.
Yeah, and we talk about, Kamaru Usman passing GSP's legacy and stuff like that. Like him beating Stephen Thompson is a stat on his legacy. Like that's a big stat on his legacy.
You'd be arguably one of the greatest strikers in MMA history.
Exactly.
Arguably one of there's not too many people I can think of, and I've always wondered how Wonder Boy would do if he went up to middleweight, and I thought he would do decently, but I liked him at welterweight too. But Wonder Boy, there's no one, in my opinion, the only person I could say there's actually no one I could say who has better striking than this man. Mm-hmm. There's no one. Striking as a category alone with kickboxing and karate and the way he mixes it up, there's no one. There's just no one in that category of striking. He has the best striking in that division, but it's an MMA fight, and that's where Kamaru has the chance to beat him. Right,
and again, that'll be something for his legacy to say, okay, I have another notch in GSP's belt that GSP couldn't have. I have a win against somebody who's arguably one of the best strikers in the welterweight division history, one of the best it's kickboxers to transition to MMA, and I beat him.
What do you think is next for Gilbert Burns?
Wonder Boy by decision. Wonder Man. But I agree. So what you said?
What do you think is next for Gilbert?
For Gilbert, it's interesting, right? Because, he took this loss. It was emotional. He's something he worked hard to get here.
Yeah.
I honestly would wait to see what happened with Tyron Woodley and Vicente Luque. And if Vicente Luque was to defeat Tyron Woodley,
that's a good fight.
I think that's a good fight to do.
Which is interesting because now all the people from Hard Knocks 365 are fighting each other. And it's actually interesting because Vicente Luque was in his corner tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if they can't do Leon Edwards versus Khamzat Chimaev, Give your boy Chimaev Gilbert Burns.
That's fair. I don't know. That's a big jump up for Chimaev at 15 to jump to top
Dude,
5.
they tried to give him Leon Edwards.
I know.
Nothing's out of all possibility.
I said no to that too, right? Like a guy like Jeff Neal, maybe if he comes back, that would be an interesting fight. He's not fighting Damian Maia again. He's definitely not fighting Jay Woodley again. So yeah,
no, I think Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns is something they can exactly do, especially Gilbert Burns coming off a loss, especially because they tried to do Leon Edwards 3 or 4 times already.
Yeah,
Leon Edwards was ranked number 3 and number
and
2
Chimaev
in the world.
was 15.
Exactly. So like they can do Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns, and they're trying to push Chimaev as the next championship contender. So that fight makes sense against somebody like Chimaev, who's way bigger.
Yeah.
Way bigger. So I see that fight happening next. But Elijah, was there anything else on this card that you would like to discuss?
I would like to do a couple of shout outs. I really thought that Maki Pitolo versus William Marquez. I thought the Anaconda choke at the end was very interesting. Shout out to Julian Marquez.
Got the Miley Cyrus shout out.
He got the Miley Cyrus shout out. He got what he wanted. He ended up he was getting dominated for a little bit, but nothing too wild. But he was losing positions and then comes back with a behind like left field Anaconda choke after stunning Maki Pitolo. That was a great fight. Anthony, my highlight of the night was Anthony Hernandez versus Rodolfo Vieira. Agreed. I mean, this Rodolfo Vieira is jacked. His back muscles have back muscles. His lower back muscles have lower back muscles. Like, this dude is a tank. Comes in, bulldozes a little bit for Hernandez. Hernandez is hanging in there, though. Has the great fight IQ for grappling, and then ends up getting up and is able to strike and hurts him in the first round. And in the second round, finishes them. It just very impressive finish. And he's now on my list of people to watch for the middleweight division.
Yeah, I agree. I thought his striking was better than the actual submission victory. But yeah the submission victory was also impressive in his own right.
You beat a guy who is arguably known as one of the best grapplers in the world right now. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is MMA, so obviously there's factors that can lead into how you get a submission. But you're submitting a guy, even if he doesn't have that big of a name after this, Mr. Hernandez, just submitting a guy who's a top ADC champion like that.
No, that's huge.
ADCC, that's big. That's stock to your name. So
yeah.
But anything can happen in MMA. Remember, it's not just grappling; it's MMA.
Yeah. I thought those were perfect shout outs. Let's say. Here's my thing. So we're gonna get the grade for this card, and this is a perfect segue to talk about my overall thoughts on the card itself. So people hit me up yesterday and was like, "Hey, do you think this pay-per-view is worth it? Do you see? What are your thoughts on this?" And my response to them was, if you're a casual fan, if you don't really care about who the main event is, no, because it's not worth $80. And that's where we are right.
It went up. It went up from the normal $70.
Yes. It's $80 now, and it's 75, but $80. Round it up. But anyway, I just think when you have the last pay-per-view card we had was with McGregor and
Dustin Poirier,
and then Michael Chandler. That was the price of admission. To see Conor McGregor back, Michael Chandler debut, that was worth the price of admission. Next month's card, you have 3 title fights on the same card. One of them being a champion versus champion fight with Adesanya, who's one of the biggest rising stars in the UFC, fighting for the light heavyweight title, which has all type of implications. You have Amanda Nunes fighting on the card. You have Peter Yan fighting on the card. That whole entire rest of the lineup is stacked. You have Dominic Cruz is fighting on the prelims. Of that event. So that's how exactly. So when you look at this card in comparison, and they're both gonna cost $80. This one, even though the main event delivered, even though the fights were good, it wasn't $80 pay-per-view. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate because they worked their ass off yesterday. They gave us great talent, great performances. I thought the UFC production was good in this pay-per-view. It's just that, man, when you're charging $80 for every single pay-per-view, one pay-per-view is going to stick out more than the others, and it's going to make it harder for you to justify paying $80 for this one we got last night.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to just when you have such stacked cards. It'd be different if they were kind of spreading it up, but when you build up these cards the way you are, it kind of devalues the cards that don't have not the credibility, but the kind of star power, right? Like Kamaru, to the average fan, Kamaru is great. Yeah, the AK camera was nice. So last night's last night's video was crisp. I was like, me and my brother was like, whoa, this is kind of good. But again, like when you have those stacked cards, when you have three big fights like that, three possible championship fights, where you have Conor with name value, and you have guys like Kamaru who have to like carry the card almost. It's kind of hard to justify having to pay those big, gaps and paying the same rate when you're not getting technically the same, I guess, amount of star power.
Well, you know what? I spoke to somebody, or I was in contact with somebody from Bloody Elbow. Mm-hmm. Great guy. I don't want to give his name because I don't want to hurt him in any way or something like that by me saying this. But I asked him, like, hey, what's the temperature of this pay-per-view? Like, the buzz for this one has been like minimal at best. Yeah. Well, and he told me quote for quote, this fight is not only going under the radar, it's submerged underwater. Like there's no buzz. There was no buzz for this card. People that messaged me about MMA and they wanted to learn, looking on Discord, they were like, what's happening today? I didn't hear any promotions. I didn't know that there were fights going on. So that's unfortunate. And they're putting all their eggs in their basket on March, where you have Leon Edwards possibly fighting. You have 5 title fights. The heavyweight title fight is in there as well.
March is arguably going to be the best month for, as of right now, arguably going to be the best month for the year.
Yeah.
Until I see otherwise.
So it's unfortunate. For that reason alone, I'm going to have to give this card a B-.
Okay. That's
B-, yeah.
I give it a B+ only because of Kamaru. Mm-hmm. I think what Kamaru did last night was special. He fought a teammate, which is always hard. He's now starting to find his solutions in finishing his opponents, which I really appreciate. Not because I want to see someone get hurt, but I'm seeing the growth in Kamaru's game. He was always someone I thought was great, but I'm starting to see this guy's talent is second to none in that division right now. So that alone, it goes from a B to B+ only. Vlad, sorry, good.
Yeah, no, Vlad, please tell me what you think about the card itself, what you graded. But yeah, I it's hard to justify giving, it anything higher than a B or anything like that. Because I just think, last week's Fight Night card, top to bottom, was a better card than this one
with matchups. Yeah. The argument's for sure there. There's an argument also that some of those fights should have been on tonight's card, but you also have fighters coming here and all that. So
that's fair. Fella, I'm glad you actually said that.
Yeah, fighters can't come necessarily to the U.S. or like kind of have to be on Fight Island and things like that. Or I mean, it was at the Apex Center if I'm not mistaken. But it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to book certain fights when they can't be here. I don't know. As somebody said, that why couldn't they just spread the wealth a little bit? They very well could have. Because I think next month is going to be in the Apex. Yeah, I mean, you never know, right? Like this could also be one of those things where they're trying to gather as many fans as possible early to get people to really want to invest and then come back to MMA once things really open up. So, this could be a game plan. This could not be a game plan. But as of right now, I think the better move would have been to kind of spread it out. But we don't know the true intentions of UFC at the moment.
Yeah. No, it's not against the fighters. This is not against the performances, not against any of that.
Fighters.
It's just
what's
as a somebody that is a consumer, was it a good show and was it worth the price of admission? And I would say no. But if you are a diehard fan, you are going to be forced to watch it anyway, like we are, and pay $80 for it. But that's not against the fighters, that's not against the performances. It's just the overall business of what it is. So yeah. But that's pretty much the show. We appreciate all the people watching for your True Flat Politics. ZZ Cool Hollows, we appreciate you. We'll be back next week to discuss Derek Lewis versus Curtis Blades. And yeah, join the Discord, like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next week. Signing off. My name is Tyriece Simon.
Elijah Jones.
This has been MMA Renegade episode 40.